Your emotional reactions might feel automatic, but they are not. 2,000 years ago, the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote of building an inner citadel, a fortress of mind no outside turmoil could breach. This is the ancient Stoic vision of emotional strength, a form of intelligence often overlooked, defined not by feeling everything, but by understanding and guiding your judgments. The modern world often prizes quick reactions, yet this philosophy offers a different path toward genuine command over your inner world. Today we will uncover 15 specific Stoic practices, long set aside, that help build a profound and steady resilience. You will discover a practical toolkit to reshape your relationship with challenging feelings. How did a philosophy embraced by both leaders and everyday people develop such thoughtful techniques for mental strength, and why have they faded from common practice? What does it truly mean to cultivate an unshakable inner peace? How often do you end your day with a true accounting of your emotional responses? The first forgotten practice, the evening audit, turns the quiet moments before sleep into a classroom for emotional intelligence. This was the nightly ritual of Seneca, who wrote extensively about retreating into himself each evening to examine the entire day. He would ask himself thoughtful questions. Where did my fears guide my actions? When did frustration influence my perspective? At which moment did a wave of strong feeling or a swell of pride pull me away from my reasoned principles? This is not about self-criticism or dwelling on mistakes. It is a gentle, systematic search for patterns in your own behavior, a way to notice your emotional triggers long before they take charge. Seneca described this practice as a form of mental clearing, a way to settle the mind and understand the sources of our inner unrest. By reviewing the day, you are not punishing yourself for feeling. You are gathering insight. You are rehearsing in the safety of your own mind a better, more thoughtful response for next time. Imagine a challenging conversation at work that left you feeling unsettled. The evening audit would revisit that moment not to relive the tension, but to understand it. What was the underlying thought that sparked that feeling? Perhaps you interpreted a colleague's comment as a personal critique when it may have simply been a hurried question. By identifying that initial thought, you can gently reconsider it and prepare a calmer, more effective reply for a future, similar situation. So, as you finish this day, can you recall one single moment where your initial emotional reaction was unhelpful? That moment, examined without judgment, is your starting point. This nightly review builds a profound self-awareness, revealing that our emotional landscape is not a mystery, but a map we can learn to read. The Stoics practiced facing difficult scenarios not to be pessimistic, but to be prepared. They called this Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of challenges, and it stands as a direct counter to our modern instinct to avoid uncomfortable thoughts. This is not about expecting the worst to happen. It is about mentally rehearsing for adversity so that when, or if it arrives, it has lost its power to shock you and derail your composure. Think of it as a fire drill for the mind. By walking through potential difficulties in your imagination, you build a firebreak against the spread of panic and anxiety. Seneca argued that the wise person rehearses every hardship in their mind long before life brings it to their door. He wrote that we often struggle more in imagination than in reality, and this practice is the cure for that specific kind of inner tension. It systematically strips the unknown of its terrifying power. Consider a difficult conversation you need to have. Instead of dreading it, you would sit quietly and visualize the exchange. You would imagine the other person reacting with frustration or disagreement. You would feel that initial discomfort in the safety of your own mind, and then you would rehearse your own calm, measured response. You are not willing this outcome into existence. You are inoculating yourself against the emotional turbulence of surprise. Or imagine a project you have worked on for months not succeeding as hoped. By mentally walking through that possibility, you confront the fear of disappointment directly. You ask yourself, what would I actually do next? You would realize that your worth is not tied to that single outcome, and that you have the capacity to begin again. This process reveals a critical truth. The thing you fear is almost always less overwhelming in the clear light of a mental rehearsal than it is in the shadowy corners of worry. So, for a moment, bring to mind one specific outcome you feel uneasy about for tomorrow. It could be a presentation not going as planned or receiving some unexpected news. Now walk through that scenario in your mind step by step, and as you do, identify the single most important element that would remain within your control throughout it all. Your ability to choose your response, your character, your integrity, that is the unshakable ground this practice helps you discover. What if you could see a setback not as a disaster, but simply as an event? This is the heart of the third forgotten practice, objective representation, a technique the Stoics called fantasia cataleptique. It is the discipline of peeling away the layer of judgment we instantly add to our experiences, the story we tell ourselves that so often fuels our emotional fires. The Stoic teacher Epictetus put it with stunning clarity when he wrote, "We are disturbed not by events, but by the judgments we bring to them." This single idea draws a critical line between what happens to you and your perception of it. The raw event is one thing, a neutral fact. The narrative you wrap around it is what gives it the power to unsettle your peace. Consider the common experience of being stuck in traffic. The objective representation is a simple, factual observation. Cars on this road are moving very slowly. This is just information. The judgmental narrative, however, might sound like this. This is not how I plan to use my time. It is affecting my schedule, and it feels like a recurring situation. Notice how the first statement is calm and descriptive, while the second carries a sense of frustration and personal concern. The traffic delay itself is neutral. It is the story of disruption and frustration that creates the emotional reaction. This practice trains you to notice that story as it forms and to consciously choose to set it aside. You learn to witness the event itself before your opinions have colored it. This does not mean you become passive or indifferent. You can still act. You might decide to call ahead to say you will be late, or use the time to listen to an audiobook, but your action now comes from a place of clear choice, not from a reactive state of distress. The goal is to see the world as it is, not as you fear or wish it to be. So, bring to mind a recent minor annoyance, perhaps a last-minute change to a plan or a piece of feedback you received. Now try to describe that event using only neutral, factual language, as if you were a calm observer reporting the scene. What are the bare facts, absent of any emotional charge? In that space between the event and your story about it, you will find a profound and often overlooked freedom. The Stoics believed that feeling separate from others is an illusion that weakens our emotional intelligence. This fourth practice, Sympathaya, invites you to see yourself not as an isolated individual, but as a vital part of a vast, interconnected whole. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly returned to this idea in his private writings, reminding himself that all rational beings share in a common mind and originate from the same universal source. He saw the entire cosmos as a single, living entity, and each person as a limb of that same body. When you internalize this perspective, your entire relationship with other people begins to shift. Their actions, especially the frustrating ones, start to look less like personal attacks and more like expressions of their own limited understanding, their own unseen struggles. This is not about excusing poor behavior, but about understanding its roots, which allows you to respond with patience rather than react with irritation. Consider a moment when someone cuts you off in traffic or speaks to you dismissively. The immediate, personal story you might tell yourself is that this person is rude or intentionally disrespectful. Sympathaya asks you to step back and consider a different narrative. Perhaps that driver is rushing to a situation you know nothing about, gripped by an anxiety that clouds their judgment. Maybe the person who was short with you is carrying a burden of private worry that has stretched their patience to its limit. This is not about inventing excuses for them, but about recognizing their shared humanity. They are, as Marcus wrote, acting according to their own flawed knowledge and perspective, just as you sometimes do. This wider view dissolves the illusion of separation that fuels so much of our daily frustration. To bring this into your day, think of one person you currently find difficult. Instead of focusing on their actions, take a quiet moment to reflect on what unseen experiences might have shaped them. What challenges, disappointments, or fears could have led them to this point in their life? You do not need to approve of their behavior, but by contemplating their journey, you create a space for empathy. In that space, your own emotional reaction loses its sharp edge, replaced by a calmer, more resilient understanding. This practice reveals that our shared human nature is a source of profound connection, a foundation for patience that can steady you against the daily friction of life. Your current worries appear very different when seen from the edge of the atmosphere. This is the fifth practice, the view from above, a mental exercise where you deliberately zoom out from your immediate struggles to see your life within the vast canvas of time and space. Marcus Aurelius used this meditation frequently, writing in his private journal of contemplating the entire cosmos to quiet the noise of his personal concerns. He would remind himself of the countless cities and empires that have risen and faded into history, and the innumerable people who have lived with all their individual hopes and concerns, now part of a much larger story. From this elevated vantage point, your own anxieties begin to lose their overwhelming scale. The argument that felt so consuming, the project that seems so urgent, even the personal slight that stings, they all shrink to their true proportion against the backdrop of a spinning planet and the flow of centuries. This is not meant to make your life feel insignificant, but to free you from the ego's habit of inflating every minor event into a catastrophe. It is a tool to drain the drama from a situation, leaving only what is real and manageable. When you feel overwhelmed by a personal challenge, try this perspective shift. Close your eyes and envision your home from above, then your neighborhood, your city, your country, until you see the whole earth as a pale blue dot in the immense blackness of space. From here, your specific concern is still present, but it is now just one small part of an almost infinite whole. The sting of a harsh word, the pressure of a deadline, the weight of a disappointment, they are all contained within this tiny point. This does not erase your challenges, but it places them in a context where they can be met with calm reason rather than frantic emotion. So take a moment and bring to mind your single biggest concern right now. Now project your mind forward 10 years into the future and look back at this present moment. From that distant point, how much of today's urgent problem remains? How much of its emotional intensity has truly lasted? You will likely find that its power to unsettle you has already begun to fade, revealing the enduring part of you that observes, learns, and continues on. The Stoic does not merely endure what happens, they love it. This sixth practice, Amor Fati, is the radical acceptance of one's fate, a conscious choice to welcome every event, especially the obstacles and losses, as if you had chosen them yourself for your own development. It transforms the energy of resentment into the power of gratitude. The philosopher Epictetus, born into a life of hardship, framed it as a guiding principle, suggesting that we should seek not for events to happen as we wish, but to wish for events to happen as they do. Centuries later, Friedrich Nietzsche would capture this same Stoic spirit with his famous declaration, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, the love of fate." This is not passive resignation. It is an active, engaging partnership with reality itself, where every circumstance becomes the raw material for building virtue, strength, and character. Imagine a piece of wood being carved. The knife cuts and shapes, which from the wood's limited perspective might seem like difficulty, but from the carver's view, each movement is essential to revealing the form hidden within. Amor Fati is choosing to see your life from the carver's perspective, trusting that even the challenging moments are shaping you into something more resilient and complete. History offers a profound example in the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius himself. His reign was not one of peaceful contemplation, but was marked by constant challenges, a widespread illness that moved across the empire, and repeated disappointments from those close to him. He could have viewed these events as misfortune, a series of difficult circumstances. Instead, in his private writings, we see him consistently applying this very principle. He did not just tolerate these hardships, he used them as the daily gymnasium for his soul, writing that the impediment to action advances action, and what stands in the way becomes the way. In a modern parallel, consider an entrepreneur whose first business does not succeed. The easy story is one of difficulty and learning. The Amor Fati story, however, is that this experience was the necessary education. It taught them specific lessons about management, market fit, and their own personal limits that they could have learned no other way. That early venture becomes the essential foundation upon which their future success is built. Not a mark against their record, but its most valuable lesson. So bring to mind one past challenge you have experienced, something that felt like a pure setback at the time, a relationship that changed, a position you moved on from, a personal goal you did not reach. Now, with the clarity of distance, can you trace the ways in which that very event forced you to grow? Did it build a patience you did not have before? Did it redirect your path toward something more authentic? In recognizing that this difficulty was not an interruption of your life, but a crucial part of its construction, you practice the deep, transformative art of loving your fate. What if you could insert a moment of choice between a thought and your reaction to it? This is the seventh forgotten practice, the discipline of assent. A subtle but powerful technique for intercepting your automatic judgments before they escalate into full-blown emotional reactions. The Stoics saw this as the essential gatekeeper of the mind, a faculty that stands guard at the entrance of your consciousness, deciding which impressions to let in and which to question. Epictetus taught that our power of assent is completely within our control, a gift no outside event can ever take from us. He explained that impressions, the initial thoughts and interpretations that flood our mind, will always appear. But our agreement with them, our inner yes or no, that is where our true freedom lies. This is the critical pause between a stimulus and your response, a space where emotional intelligence is truly built. Consider the common experience of receiving thoughtful feedback. The initial impression might be a sharp, defensive thought, a story that says this person is unfair or does not understand my work. Without the discipline of assent, that impression instantly becomes your reality, triggering feelings of frustration or uncertainty. Your entire emotional state is now riding on an unchallenged assumption. This practice teaches you to catch that initial impression and hold it up to the light of reason before you agree with it. You create a moment of space to ask, is this interpretation completely true? Is there another way to see this situation? You might realize that the feedback, though difficult to hear, contains a kernel of useful insight, or you might see that it stems from a simple misunderstanding. The point is not to blindly accept the criticism, but to prevent your own mind from reacting to a story that may be incomplete or distorted. The next time you feel a sudden surge of frustration or a sense of unease, that is your signal to practice. Before the feeling dictates your words or actions, take one conscious breath and silently label the initial impression. I am having the impression that I have been treated unfairly. Just by naming it, you create that essential separation between the event and your judgment of it. In that quiet space, you reclaim your power to choose a response aligned with your principles, not your impulses. This is how you stop being a passenger to your own thoughts and become the driver. The Stoics had a powerful mental exercise, asking themselves what the ideal wise person would do. This eighth practice, the contemplation of the sage, invites you to construct a mental role model of perfect reason and virtue. This is not meant to make you feel inadequate, but to offer a clear compass for your own decisions. The goal is not to achieve an impossible standard of perfection, but to use this idealized figure as a gentle benchmark to help guide your own judgments and actions toward greater wisdom. Seneca often encouraged his readers to choose a good person to model their life after, to keep them always in your mind as your guardian or standard. He was not suggesting blind imitation, but the thoughtful study of character. When you are unsure how to respond to a situation with emotional intelligence, you can pause and consult this inner guide. This turns abstract philosophy into a practical, moment-by-moment tool for emotional regulation. Imagine you are in a heated discussion where the temptation is to interrupt, to become defensive, to score a point. In that crucial moment, you summon the image of your sage. How would this person of profound composure and understanding act? They would likely listen intently, seek to understand the underlying concern, and respond with clarity rather than heat. Your sage would not be swayed by the impulse to win the argument, but guided by the principle of seeking truth and maintaining mutual respect. This mental shift creates a space between your initial reaction and your chosen response, allowing you to act from a place of principle rather than impulse. Another common scenario is facing a personal temptation, perhaps to delay an important task or to indulge in a complaint. Your sage, a figure of self-discipline and focus, would recognize the fleeting pleasure of avoidance but choose the lasting satisfaction of fulfilling a duty. They would see the complaint as a drain on their inner peace and redirect that energy toward a constructive solution. The sage is not a distant, unfeeling statue, but a representation of your own highest potential for rationality and strength. So, take a moment to define the three most important qualities of your personal sage. Is it unwavering courage in the face of fear? Is it profound patience when plans go wrong? Is it a generous empathy even toward those who are difficult? Now, bring to mind a current, specific challenge in your own life. How would your sage, embodying those three chosen qualities, navigate this very situation? The answer does not demand perfection from you, but it illuminates the next, most constructive step forward on your own path. The Stoics believed that seeking small discomforts was a vaccine against future hardship. This ninth practice, voluntary discomfort, is a direct and physical training for the mind. It is the conscious choice to temporarily step away from the ease we are accustomed to, not as a form of punishment, but as a way to build a deep-seated confidence in our own resilience. The goal is to prove to yourself through direct experience that you can endure and even thrive with less than you currently have. This process systematically weakens the power that the fear of loss holds over you, the quiet anxiety that whispers you could not handle it if things were taken away. Seneca famously practiced this by setting aside a few days each month to live in what he called voluntary simplicity. He would wear his most simple clothing, eat the plainest bread, and sleep on a hard surface. He wrote that he did this to reassure himself that the gap between his current life and a life of true challenge was not so wide, and that he should not fear what he was capable of enduring. This was his way of inoculating his mind against the shock of potential misfortune, building an inner fortitude that no external change could easily shake. In our modern context, the principle remains powerfully applicable. You do not need to sleep on the floor, but you can choose to take a cold shower instead of a warm one, not for some fleeting trend, but for the mental victory of standing firm in that temporary discomfort. You could choose to skip a meal intentionally, not for weight loss, but to understand that the sensation of hunger is manageable and temporary. You might decide to walk to a destination instead of driving, embracing the minor effort to remind your body and mind of their own inherent strength. Each of these small acts is a vote for your own self-reliance. They are rehearsals for a time when comfort is not an option, proving to the deepest part of your psyche that you are fundamentally okay, even when things are not easy. So this week, choose one small comfort to voluntarily forego. It could be that second cup of coffee, the constant background noise of music, or the habitual scroll through your phone. In that conscious choice, you are not depriving yourself. You are making a deposit into your emotional resilience, building the unshakable knowledge that your peace does not depend on perfect external conditions. How would you live today if you knew it was your last? This 10th practice, Memento Mori, is the Stoic art of remembering our own human journey, a meditation designed not to stir fear, but to fill your life with immediate purpose and deep gratitude. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius returned to this thought often in his private writings, reminding himself that you could step away from life at any moment, and to let that awareness shape what you do and say and think. This was never a dark focus on endings, but a living tool for seeing what truly matters. By holding the finite nature of our days clearly in mind, the countless small worries and distractions that fill our attention begin to seem just as they are, temporary and light. The sting of a sharp remark, the anxiety over a future that may never come, the endless chase for more things, all of it settles when placed beside the truth of a limited and precious life. This practice gently rearranges your priorities, drawing you back from the unimportant and toward what is essential. A simple way to bring this into your day is to begin each morning with a quiet moment of reflection. Before the rush of tasks begins, you might ask yourself a form of that opening question. If this were my final day, what would I hope to complete? Who would I want to reach out to? How would I choose to walk through the world? The answer will rarely point toward checking more items off a list. It will guide you toward gestures of kindness, moments of true connection, and the quiet honor of doing what feels right. This daily reminder does not bring panic, but a sense of focused calm, helping you place your precious time into what gives lasting meaning. So, pause for a moment and bring to mind one specific concern that has been on your thoughts recently. Maybe it is a worry about how others see you, or an irritation over a plan that has been delayed, or a fear of a small awkward moment. Now, if you truly welcomed the insight of Memento Mori, if you carried the knowledge of life's beauty and its briefness with you, would that particular concern still hold the same power over your heart? You may find its weight has already softened, making room for what genuinely matters to come forward. Some things are within our power and some things are not. With that simple, foundational opening, the Stoic teacher Epictetus established the 11th practice, the Dichotomy of Control, a mental sieve for separating your emotional energy from the countless things you cannot command. He taught that our own judgments, our impulses, our desires and aversions, and our actions are truly within our power. Everything else, from our reputation and our wealth to the actions and opinions of other people, is ultimately not. This is not a lesson in helplessness, but a precise map for where to focus your effort and where to release your worry. The emotional turmoil we experience so often comes from a fundamental confusion, from trying to control the uncontrollable. We exhaust ourselves trying to manage outcomes and other people's perceptions, forgetting that our only real domain is our own inner world and our chosen responses. Imagine preparing for a critical job interview. The list of things outside your control is vast and often the source of the greatest anxiety. You cannot control who the other candidates are, the specific questions the interviewers will ask, their personal moods that day, or their final decision. You cannot command them to see your full potential. Focusing your emotional energy here is like trying to hold back the tide with your hands, a guaranteed path to frustration and nervousness. Now shift your focus to what is within your power. You can control your preparation, researching the organization thoroughly and practicing your responses. You can control your actions, arriving on time and presenting yourself professionally. You can control your judgments, choosing to see the interview not as a terrifying test of your worth, but as a conversation and an opportunity to share your skills. Most importantly, you can control your effort and your character, resolving to be honest, attentive, and composed regardless of the outcome. When you make this clear distinction, your energy has a proper channel. You pour it into your preparation and your conduct, and you release your attachment to the result. This is the root of emotional stability, a profound freedom from the anxiety of externals. So take a quiet moment and bring to mind 3 current concerns. Write them down if you can. For each one, ask this clarifying question. Is this about something that is entirely within my own power, my judgments and my actions, or is it about an external event or another person's choice? Place each one into its proper category. You may find that the majority of your mental burden rests on things you were never meant to carry. In that act of sorting, you reclaim your focus and your peace, directing your life toward what you can actually build. The Stoics practiced a form of mindfulness long before it was a modern trend. This 12th practice, Prossoche, is the art of sustained attention to your own mind in the present moment. It is the vigilant awareness that acts as the foundation for every other Stoic technique you have learned. The ever-watchful presence at the door of your consciousness that helps prevent automatic, emotionally charged reactions from slipping through unchallenged. Epictetus stressed this constant gentle attention, teaching his students that the first step toward a peaceful life is to watch over your own impressions as a guardian watches over a city gate. This is not a passive state, but an active, kind attention to the flow of your inner world, noticing judgments and impulses as they arise. Without this foundational awareness, the discipline of assent cannot be applied, and the evening reflection has no material to review. Prossoche is the thread that ties all the other practices together, turning them from abstract ideas into a lived reality. To understand how this works in practice, choose one simple, routine activity you will do today, like drinking a morning cup of tea or taking a short walk. For the duration of that activity, your only task is to place your full attention on the experience. If you are drinking tea, notice the warmth of the cup in your hands, the subtle aroma rising to meet you, the complex flavor as you take a sip. When your mind inevitably wanders to a concern about the day or a memory from yesterday, which it will, you simply notice that it has drifted and gently guide it back to the sensation of the tea without any self-criticism. This is the heart of the practice, the gentle return. You are not trying to empty your mind, but to train its faculty of attention, strengthening your ability to notice your thoughts before they carry you away. This moment-to-moment awareness is what allows you to catch the initial spark of frustration in a conversation before it becomes a strong reaction, or to notice the first whisper of anxiety about a future event before it grows into full worry. It gives you the presence of mind to ask, is this thought true, and is this reaction helpful? So, as a starting point, can you give yourself the gift of just 5 minutes today, fully immersed in a single task without any distraction? In that brief space of pure attention, you are not just completing a task, you are building the most essential skill for emotional clarity, the power to be truly where you are. How much of your speaking is a reaction, and how much is a thoughtful response? The 13th forgotten practice, the discipline of silence, trains you to close your mouth and open your mind, creating a space where true understanding can grow. The Stoics saw careless speech as a primary source of life's regrets, and they cultivated this quiet not as a withdrawal from the world, but as a more powerful way of engaging with it. The founder of Stoicism, Zeno of Citium, offered a simple, physical reminder of this principle when he observed that nature has given us one tongue, but 2 ears, so we may hear more than we speak. This is not about never speaking, but about ensuring your words carry weight and purpose when you do. Seneca wrote extensively about the value of quiet, suggesting that in silence we find the clarity that constant chatter scatters. He saw it as a form of mental preservation, a way to guard your inner peace from the turmoil of impulsive, unconsidered speech. This practice transforms conversations from a competition to be heard into an opportunity for genuine discovery. It is a discipline of gathering information and practicing empathy, of truly listening to understand the person in front of you, rather than simply waiting for your turn to talk. To bring this into your own life, try a simple listening exercise for one day. In your next conversation, make it your sole goal to understand the other person's perspective before you even begin to formulate your own reply. When they are speaking, give them your complete attention. Notice the impulse to interrupt, to correct a small detail, or to share your own similar experience. See that impulse and then consciously choose to let it pass. Instead, focus on the meaning behind their words, the emotion in their tone, the unspoken need they might be expressing. You will be amazed at how much more you hear when you are not already preparing your defense or your story. This pause creates a buffer against words spoken in haste or frustration. It allows you to respond from a place of considered principle, not raw reaction. So tomorrow, in one single conversation, make a quiet pact with yourself. Observe the familiar urge to speak as it arises, and in that moment, choose to pause for just 3 seconds. In that brief silence, you are not being passive, you are being powerful, creating the space for a response that is truly your own. The Stoics saw the universe not as chaotic, but as a rational, interconnected system. This 14th practice, the contemplation of the whole, invites you to step back and view your life as a single thread woven into a vast, purposeful tapestry. It is the act of trusting in the underlying reason of the cosmos, what they called the logos, which orchestrates all events toward a harmonious end. This perspective transforms how you interpret the setbacks and surprises of daily life. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to this thought, writing in his private meditations that everything which happens, happens justly. Take a closer look and you will see this is true. He was not suggesting that every event feels good, but that it fits within a coherent whole where nothing is truly out of place. When you deeply internalize this, a cancelled plan or an unexpected change stops feeling like a personal offense or a random disruption. It becomes a necessary adjustment within a pattern too large for you to fully see in the moment. Imagine you had arranged to meet a friend for a long-awaited conversation, only for them to cancel at the last moment. The immediate personal story might be one of frustration, a narrative that they do not value your time. The contemplation of the whole asks you to consider a different possibility. That cancellation set off a new chain of events. Perhaps it freed up an hour that allowed you to finally start a book you had been meaning to read, which in turn gave you a new idea that helped you solve a problem at work. Or maybe it prevented you from being in a certain place at a certain time, avoiding a minor inconvenience you will never even know about. The point is not to invent magical explanations, but to trust that the event itself is not an isolated act of misfortune. It is integrated into the complex, flowing order of a universe that is not acting against you, but is simply unfolding as it must. This trust is the antidote to the feeling that life is personally unfair, a feeling that fuels so much of our anxiety and disappointment. So bring to mind a recent disappointment, something that felt like a genuine setback. Now, for a moment, suspend your initial judgment and consider it from this wider angle. Can you see how this single event, however difficult, forced a change in your direction or pace? Can you identify a small, unexpected benefit or a lesson it brought that a smoother path might not have offered? In trusting that it belongs to a larger, benevolent pattern, you release the need to control every detail and find a profound peace in participating in the whole. The Stoics believed that the surest path to contentment was to desire less, not have more. This final practice, the art of contentment with little, is the ultimate expression of emotional intelligence, a deliberate training to find profound sufficiency in what you already possess. It is the conscious choice to step off the exhausting treadmill of wanting the next thing, recognizing that the chase itself is the source of much of our inner unrest. Seneca, a man of immense wealth, wrote passionately about the importance of periodically practicing simplicity to truly know that a person can be happy without an abundance of possessions. He argued that luxury and constant acquisition do not heal our worries. They often magnify them, creating new needs and new anxieties where none existed before. The philosopher Musonius Rufus took this further, teaching that the body's needs are actually very few and easily satisfied, and that true hardship comes from our endless mental cravings for more than what is necessary. This is not a call to abandon all worldly goods, but to build an emotional independence from them, to cultivate a stable joy that is not tied to your latest acquisition or promotion. When your happiness is not dependent on external conditions, you have discovered a freedom that no market fluctuation or change of circumstance can ever take from you. A powerful modern way to practice this is through a voluntary spending pause for 1 week. This does not mean buying nothing, but rather pausing all non-essential purchases. No new clothes, no takeout meals for convenience, no streaming subscriptions you do not use. The goal is not to experience lack, but to observe. You will notice the automatic impulses to spend, the subtle ways you use shopping to soothe a feeling of restlessness or to fill a quiet moment. In that space of conscious restraint, you begin to separate your wants from your needs, and you often rediscover the simple, cost-free pleasures you already have access to, like a walk in a nearby park or a book you have been meaning to read. Another daily application is to keep a gratitude list focused exclusively on non-material things. Each evening, write down 3 such gifts. It could be the simple fact of your health today, the comfort of your shelter, the warmth of your bed, or the memory of a shared laugh with a friend. This ritual systematically redirects your attention from what you lack to the incredible wealth you already hold, wealth that is not subject to change in the same way. So, as we conclude this journey through forgotten Stoic practices, Take a quiet moment to list 3 non-material things you are deeply grateful for at this very instant. In that simple act of recognition, you are not just making a list, you are actively building your inner citadel, stone by grateful stone, discovering that contentment was never something to be acquired, but a perspective to be chosen, right here with exactly what you have. These 15 practices all share a common foundation, a single thread that transforms emotional intelligence from a vague idea into a tangible skill. They guide you from being a passenger to your feelings, moved by every wave of emotion, to becoming the architect of your own inner world, carefully building a resilient and steady mind. This is the profound shift that Stoicism offers, a move from passivity to active, daily cultivation. True emotional strength, in the Stoic sense, is not something you are born with, but a discipline you build piece by piece through these thoughtful routines. The Roman teacher Epictetus, who began his life facing great challenges, captured this ultimate goal with stunning clarity. He said, "Freedom is secured not by the fulfillment of what you desire, but by the removal of desire." This is the heart of it all. Your freedom is found not in getting everything you want, but in mastering your relationship with wanting itself and with the concern about what you wish to avoid. The entire structure of these 15 practices is designed to give you that mastery, to return the reins of your inner life to your own hands. This path is not about a single, grand transformation, but about the quiet, consistent application of small choices. You do not need to attempt all 15 at once. The journey begins with a single step. This week, look back over these practices and choose just 1 or 2 that spoke to you most directly. Perhaps it is the calming clarity of the view from above when a worry feels too large, or the gentle power of the evening audit to understand your own reactions. Maybe it is the simple, grounding act of voluntary discomfort to prove your own resilience to yourself. We would be honored to hear which practice you feel called to explore. Share in the comments the one discipline that resonated most with you, and in doing so, you join a community of others on the same path, building our inner citadels together, one thoughtful stone at a time.